China is the world's largest auto market. China is also the world's biggest carbon emitter. Do you think China realizes and understands how much it needs your technology?
Well, I think there's an understanding by the Chinese government that electric vehicles are very important to the future. In order to have clean air in cities, you have to go electric. So the policies and initiatives of the national government are increasingly favoring that outcome. The challenge for Tesla, I think, is to figure out local production, because right now our cars in China they come in with quite a high import duty, and we're not eligible for local incentives. So all of our sales in China are effectively at quite a high penalty. But that will be alleviated once we move to local production.
Yeah, you have the upcoming more affordable Model 3 coming out. Is that going to be made in China?
It will eventually be made in China. I think the thing that sometimes is not obvious for Tesla is that we're actually a very tiny company. Our total production last year was only 50,000 cars compared to global production of 90 million for all car makers. So there's only so much we can do at one time. If it was possible for us to do local production in China sooner, we would, but I think it's probably going to be close to 3 years before we can achieve that outcome.
Now, the Model 3 will be a real test for Tesla. That's when you're going to see if the EV, the electric car, can go truly mainstream. Are you confident?
Actually, I do feel pretty optimistic about the Model 3. The key thing with the Model 3 is higher volume and a lower price. And it is a smaller car, and without quite as many bells and whistles as the Model S or X. But the goal is to have a very compelling, affordable, mass market electric vehicle, and I feel pretty good about that goal.
Are you worried at all about GM beating you to the market with its upcoming Bolt due out next year?
I think if GM comes to the market with a compelling electric car, that's great. The goal of Tesla from the beginning has been to accelerate the advent of sustainable transport. So, I think if GM or any other company comes out with compelling electric cars, that's good for the world, and we would applaud them.
Plummeting oil prices.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to undercut the viability of electric cars? Your thoughts on that?
Well, it definitely reduces the power of the economic forcing function to go electric if oil is at decadal lows. I think in the case of Tesla, it probably affects us a little bit less because we have quite significant product differentiation. For lower priced EVs where it's more of an economic decision, I think they will actually take a pretty big hit. So the EV industry as a whole, I think, will definitely suffer because of the low oil prices.
So
it kind of just makes economic sense that it would.
So it could stall the rollout of the Model 3 or the Bolt?
No, I don't think I think the Model 3 will have pretty substantial product differentiation. So you essentially have to say, like, okay, here's the value. The value is a certain level, and then the price is a certain level. So as long as the value and the price make sense relative to each other, a product will be fine.
A question about Solar City. You're also the chairman of Solar City, where you're launching solar panels, building out solar panels and systems. Why does solar make sense?
The people of Earth will have to make a decision. To what degree are we willing to sacrifice the future for the present?
Yeah.
The overwhelming opinion of the scientific community is that we should not put billions of tons of carbon into the atmosphere, which is what we're doing. But unless we change the rules, because the rules currently strongly favor hydrocarbons, unless we change the rules, I think we're in for a really rough future.
I mean, is that in the back of your mind of how you can seduce the public to buy into a low carbon future when it's so easy with low oil prices that they don't need to go solar, they don't need to go electric? So you got to make it cool for them. You got to make it enticing for them. Well,
that's what we're trying to do with Tesla. Is we're trying to make the electric car so compelling that you don't care about about cheap gas. It's harder, I think, on the solar front because electricity is more of a commodity. It's not like different types of electricity. It's essentially a commodity. I mean, fundamentally, we have a delayed gratification issue collectively as a species. Like, are we willing to sacrifice the near term for the long term or not? I mean, at some point we will have no choice because we'll run out of hydrocarbons to mine and burn, and we will have to transition to a sustainable energy economy. So sooner or later, we've got to go towards a solar electric future. It's better for the future of Earth if we go sooner than later.
You're also the CEO of SpaceX. The ultimate goal is Mars.
Right.
It's getting humankind to Mars. So why does Mars make sense?
The goal of Tesla and Solar City is to minimize the existential threat of a delayed transition to a sustainable energy economy. The purpose of SpaceX is to help make life multiplanetary. If life as we know it is multiplanetary, then the probable length of existence of human civilization is much greater. So, I mean, think of like this, like the unifying philosophy behind all three companies is trying to minimize existential threats, that kind of thing. So.
And I see that, but Mars and...
Why Mars instead of something else?
No, but how I see Mars being your destination is sort of a backup plan for humankind, right?
I think there are two main motivations for Mars. I mean, one is the sort of defensive reason of saying, okay, if something were to happen to Earth, is life as we know it, does it end? Or if it's on another planet, then it probably doesn't end. A multi-planet civilization is likely to last a lot longer than a single planet civilization. The other part of it is it would just be an incredible adventure.
Yeah.
And it would be very exciting. And even if somebody never planned to go to Mars, just following the progress, I think would vicariously would be quite inspiring.
Yeah.
And I do think it's important that we have things that inspire us. It can't just be about solving, miserable problems all the time, because why get up in the morning? What's
your advice to encourage people to do the hard stuff and to invent the hard stuff for the betterment of humankind?
I think the right way to think of things is like, what is the most useful thing that you can think of to do, and that others are not doing? If our problems are getting well solved by others, there's not much point in going and then competing against them if they're going to solve it well anyway. It's better to work on things that you think probably enough smart people aren't working on.
A couple quick questions about Hyperloop. It's an idea that you came up with. You gave it away because you had no time to deal with it.
Yeah.
A number of companies are taking it on. There is traction. It's gaining momentum. If it does roll out successfully in California, do you see other applications around the world?
The only thing that I'm involved in actually with respect to Hyperloop is we're building a little test track, and we're funding an annual student competition, which is really just to encourage thinking in new modes of transportation. It seems to have gotten a fair bit of momentum at the college level. Kids are pretty excited about it. So it's basically the only part that I'm involved in is just trying to get kids excited about new transport technology.
Yeah, you quite famously gave the idea away because you had no time for it. Do you have other ideas that you have no time for?
Well, I mean, I do think it's possible to create something very exciting in electric aircraft. I think there's probably going to be a lot that happens in genetics and in human-machine brain interface, like essentially a cyborg brain interface. I think there's some pretty...
The so-called singularity?
Singularity, well, that's sort of more relating to deep AI. It's something I think we should be concerned about, because that may or may not turn out well.
Yeah. You've expressed your reservations about AI and your fears about that.
Yeah, I just think the singularity is probably the right word, because we just don't know what's going to happen once there's intelligence substantially greater than that of a human brain.
Yeah, and do you think, because there's been a lot of sci-fi about AI, series like Humans, et cetera, it's entering the mainstream, entering the public discourse, that people are understanding the ethical dangers and the, I guess, physical dangers that AI could potentially pose?
I mean, most of the movies and TV featuring AI, they don't describe it in quite the way it's likely to actually take place. But I think you just have to consider, like, even in the benign scenario where AI, if AI is much smarter than a person, what do we do?
Yeah.
What job do we have?
Believe in a benevolent AI force and cross our fingers.
Yeah, just like but that's the benign scenario. Benign scenario, the AI can do any job that a human can, but better.
Yeah.
That's the benign scenario.